Sometimes when provisioning new servers in your environment, you like to specify one specific partition table. Yeah, you like to say, okay, I have 2, 3, 4 disks. I would like to segregate this one. I would like to use LVM. I would like to not use LVM. So how to do this in Satellite? In this video, I'm going to show you how to do this. Simple, easy, very well explained. So let's go to the video. Let's start by the documentation. As you know, docs.reddit.com, you can search by satellite. This is the latest version of Satellite during the time that I'm recording this video. In this page, I like to search by provisioning or prov, and then we can see this one. Feel free to open a new tab. Then we have this page. Over here, what you can search is by dynamic partition table or dynamic partition example. So in this way, you can see that by default, we have this section 2.11, and by default will be something like this. We have auto partitioning, which means this will be like an auto partitioning. And here you have no control about how much space will be consuming in one specific file system or not. This is one example of how you can segregate this one. Basically, you can copy this one from here, you can paste in your scenario, and then that's it. You can adequate according to your necessity. But as you know, I'm here to give you a lot of bonus. So let's take a look on this. I created this repository, and again, at this moment, we have just one example. I will open one issue to add those examples that we do have here. All those links will be in the description down below. But what I did here was this kind of situation because this is a very common question. Let's suppose that I have multiple disks in my system, and as you know on RHEL 8 Plus, eventually you can see that disk as a first disk, and eventually that will appear as a second disk. And then you say, okay, Wally, how can I enforce that disk will be always my first one, or that disk will be the first one that I would like to install my operating system? So you can use this approach, and here I have 4 different scenarios, or 4 different examples. Partitioning templates examples. In this case, I have one virtual machine with 2 disks, one with 20 and a second one with 40. And then I will be covering here most of the common scenarios, like, okay, I would like to create one partition, LVM, setting my disk of 20 gigs as my first disk. In this one, I'll be using the LVM, but the second disk, the disk of 40 gigs, and then I would like to set that disk to be my initial disk or the disk that I'll be installing the operating system. Same here for XFS. I would like to use a disk of 20 gig to be my primary disk. And in this case, XFS, I would like to use the disk of 40 gigs to be my primary disk. So how can I do this? Let's take a look on those codes and then we can have one idea. So this is the LVM first disk, 20 gig. Let's remove this one. Anytime, keep this in mind, you have to keep this one, the dynamic, because this is what's gonna tell to Satellite, hey, I'm using dynamic information here. I would like to import this information to my Kickstart during this provisioning process. And then you can see that we have a bash script. Yeah, that's right. You can use anything that you know about bash script and all the commands that will be available during the Anaconda process, like during the installation. And then I can tell you for sure, lsblk will be there. And what I did here was pretty simple. I was using lsblk, filtering by 20 gig, and then you can filter by the controller, different controllers or different sizes, or you pick what is best for your scenario. In this case, I have 2 disks, one of 20, another one of 40. And I'm using those sizes just to help me to set, okay, this will be the first, this will be the second. And then I'm grabbing by the 20 gig, I'm filtering by disk, I'm getting the first column, I'm counting the number of occurrence. If this is greater than 0, that means that I found something. I have one variable here, OS disk. And OS disk will be receiving the response of this execution. And what is this execution? I'm using lsblk again, filtering by 20 gigs, filter by disk, getting the first column. And then I have VDA, SDA, SDB, whatever, the disk that will match with that size. If this is not happening, if I'm not able to get anything, if the response here is not greater than 0, then we'll jump to else. And what will happen is my OS disk will be lsblk again, filtering by disk. So I'm grabbing all the disks. I'm getting the first one, head-n1, the first one. If I have multiple, I'm getting the first one. And then I'll be using that as my disk, just getting the first column of this output. Then I have this variable. One important point here, if you see most of them, I have the similar approach. See, I have the test in the beginning. So feel free to use your creativity and pick the disk that you believe to be interesting for your scenario. But basically, I have to find one way to select the disk that I would like to be my primary disk. All right, let's return. So here we can see that we are creating this file, redirecting to this file, and we have a cat to receive some stuff up to the end of the file. And the end of the file is here. In other words, everything that is inside of this cat up to the end of the line or end of the file will be inside of this CFG file. So now let's take a look. We have 0 MBR. This guy is gonna clean up all the MBR, all the information in your master boot record from your disks. This one is gonna clean up all the partitions that you have in your disk. So if you have any partition already, this is gonna wipe them out, definitely for good. And after that, you can also use some comments. This is gonna help you to identify what you're doing and describe what you're doing. This is good. So we have here the partition /boot. So I have one partition /boot. The type is ext4. The disk I would like to set in which disk. So remember, I have this variable $OS disk, which is the same of this one over here. If I have one disk and this disk is 20 gig, and let's say that this is SDA, this guy over here will be SDA, and the size will be 1 gig. Next line, we can see that I have another partition. I have this one EFI /boot/EFI. The type is EFI. I'm setting the disk over here, similar as before, and the size is also 1 gig. Hey Wally, is this recommended? Like, can I put more, less? You can check in the documentation. The main goal here is to set like the partition table, like the templates, how to use, how to be familiar, how to get familiar with them, and how to implement this in your satellite. And also see the results. In a sequence, we'll be checking in the machines that got installed by those templates, what is the expected output. So from here, we can see this is one LVM. We have our physical volume, and then we have the type, logical volume. On disk, which disk? OS disk again, the size 1. This is a good approach because think about it. You can get like one disk of 20 gigs, and then now I have to split this size and then put the correct size here in a way that all of them should be matching. If you want, you can, but this is a neat approach because you can set the size of one and you can set the grow, which means if you request more, that guy will increase the size. So keep this in mind. Then we have the volume group, root VG. The PE size or physical extent size will be 4096, and then this will be associated to my PV01 that we created over here, our physical volume. And after that, I can create my LVMs. If you're not familiar with LVM, how LVM works, I have another video here talking about LVM, like expanding a file system and understanding how this works. I'm gonna keep the link in the card. So moving on, we can see now I have my logical volume. This one is swap. The file system type is swap. The size is 2 gigs. If I would like to change this one, I can. The name will be swap LV, and the VG name here will be root VG, same as we created here. I have also a logical volume for our root file system. The type will be XFS, 4 gigs. The name will be root LV, and this is part of this VG, the same VG, root VG. Then I added one more, like /home. Hey Wally, I don't need home. Can I just put a comment in the beginning of this line? Yes, you can. Hey Wally, I do need my var or my USR lib in a different partitions. Can I copy those lines and then change accordingly to my necessity? Definitely you can. And then once we have this one here, home, the type is also XFS. Can I change this one to a different file system type like ext4? Yes, you can, no big deal. And then the size here will be 1 gig. The name of this logical volume, home LV, and the VG name, root VG, same as we created here. If you like to create multiple VGs, like you have this root VG and then you'd like to create another volume group called app VG, for instance, definitely you can. But again, the main idea here is to keep it simple in a way that you understand the flow. This is everything that you need. If you copy the whole thing here, or if you click on this button to copy the whole thing, this is everything that you need to set in your satellite. All right, this is LVM first disk. Let me pick LVM second disk, and then we can see the difference. This is LVM first disk, this is LVM second disk. Okay, if we take a look, the second disk, I'm just grabbing the second disk. I'm grabbing for the disk with 40 gigs. Okay, and then if I have one disk with 40 gigs, because I know this is my second disk, I will be setting my OS disk to 40 gigs. After that, basically all the rest is still the same except for this line. So if we take a look on the previous one, I have my clear part of clear partition, and after that I have this comment. See, I have my clear partition and I have a comment, but in this one I have this line. And Wally, what is this line? We need to install the bootloader. Bootloader by default is not here. We have the bootloader in the Kickstart templates, the standard Kickstart, but the bootloader will always try to deploy or to install the bootloader in the first disk. So in this case specifically, I'm trying to use my second disk, the disk with 40 gigs, and I know for sure that this is my second disk. If I keep the bootloader, the standard one that we have in the Kickstart, that's gonna fail. Because what will happen is this is gonna create this partition boot on my second disk, then this partition will be there, but the bootloader will try to deploy in the first disk. And then this is gonna fail for sure. One approach that we can use here is, as part of this process, I'm gonna say, hey, the bootloader will be installed on this disk. And then assuming this is my second disk, third disk, or whatever disk, like a different disk from the first one, bootloader / kickstart will know for sure in which disk this should be deployed, and will install with no issue, no problem. Yeah, will be beauty, amazing, believe me. And basically all the rest is the same. Let's take a look on the XFS first disk. Similar approach, we are getting the disk that we want, zeroing the MBR, cleaning up all the partition, creating the partitions, boot and boot EFI. And from here, you can see that we have the partition root and the file system. Simple, straightforward, no big deal. If we take a look on the next one, again, the only difference is the bootloader, because now I need to pass which one is my boot drive. And then once I set the boot drive, bootloader will know for sure I should be installing this in a different disk, and then there you go. This is pretty good. Hey Wally, one simple question. Could I keep this bootloader on my first disk once I have no idea if this is my first or second? Like, I will be doing my queries, but I'm not sure. Definitely yes, you can keep that line here. That line is not gonna hurt. If you like to keep the bootloader to all the disks that you have using the dynamic partition, definitely you can. What will happen is, if this is my first disk, that's okay, your first disk will be here. If this is your second disk, your second disk will be here. If this is your 10th disk, your disk will be here. And for those of them, this is going to work fine with no big deal, no problem. All right. This is basically all the templates, the partition tables, the most common partition tables that we see. Now let's see on satellite. Okay, I have some machines here that got deployed by satellite, like this one is using the standard partition or auto partitioning. And then you can see that I have my LVM using the first disk, LVM using the second disk, XFS using the first disk, and XFS using the second disk. So let's see the results, and at the end of this video, I'm gonna show you how to create your partition template, how to assign this to operating system, and how to provision a new system using that specific template. So let's jump to the terminal. This is the one we can see by the name. I kept the name here just to helping us to identify those machines. This is the standard partition, like I'm not doing any change in the partition table. I'm using the standard one, the default one. What will happen is you can see that I have two disks, VDA and VDB. In VDA, I can see my boot partition. And then as part of the LVM, I have my first and my second disk. So if we take a look on physical volume, I can see that I have my physical volume VDB1 and VDA2 as part of this physical volume. Both are associated with this volume group. And based on the volume group, I have just one volume group. And I have my partitions or my logical volumes based on that specific volume group. This is what is happening when you set like the standard one. And then you say, okay, Wally, this is nice, but I would like to create one LVM just using my VDA. My VDB should be in use by any other thing, like an application or whatever. Then this is the kind of situation that you're looking for. And this was created based on that template. If we come back here, LVM first disk. So if we see, we have this disk of 20 gigs. Then one partition was created for boot with 1 gig. Let me change this a little bit. You can see here the boot partition. The boot partition was created with 1 gig. And then we have this EFI also with 1 gig. Then after that, we have the LVM configuration. So if we take a look on our physical volume, I have my VDA3, and this was on disk VDA. So if I take a look on my volume group, I can see the volume group is root VG, and then we can see the name over here, root VG. The physical extent size is 4096, and then, Wally, can I see that? Definitely you can. VG display. We can see the PE size here is 4 MB, 4096. And let's return to the logical volume. We can also show passing dash dash fs, and then we can see it like I created one logical volume swap. We can see the swap is over here or also here, and the swap is 2 gigs, and then we can see 2 gigs of swap. The root file system is 4 gigs, so we can see root file system 4 gigs, and the name is root LV. We can see root LV, and the VG name is root VG. So basically this is the VG name dash LV name. This is what we are seeing here. And finally we have this logical volume slash home, which is this one. The size is 1 gig. The name is home LV, this one, and the VG name is root VG. So amazing. We can see here that this is working, like the partition table was able to set all the partitions that we need in the first disk, and the second one is still there untouched, ready for you to come up and set something based on your application or based on your needs. Amazing, Wally. This is exciting and totally deserves your subscription. So let's move it on. We have XFS. As I mentioned before, in XFS, the approach is very similar. And then what I'm doing is just looking for a disk, 20 gigs. And then based on that disk, I have my partition, boot with 1 gig. I have my second partition, EFI, 1 gig. I have my home with 10 gigs. So let's take a look. Now there's one, XFS, first disk. We have our root file system, exe4, 10,000. Not 10 gigs exactly, but I put 10,000 on purpose because we can see this one here, 9.8 gigs. And we can see that this is exe4. In this visualization, I can confirm that, but if we pass dash dash fs, we can see the kind of file system. So we can see this is one exe4. And finally, we have the swap with 1 gig. And if we take a look here, we have the swap with 1 gig as well. All right, let's go to the next one. This is LVM using the second disk. See, now this is a little bit different because I was looking for the disk with 40 gigs and we were able to pick this one, and all the configuration, all the partitioning was executed in the second disk. So we can see the boot partition on VDB1. We can see the partition of boot EFI as VDB2, and we can see all the LVM configuration on VDB3. And VDA1, it's still intact over there, again, just for the sake of your necessity, your usage. If we move it on to the next, this is the machine XFS with second disk. Same approach, same idea. We have our partition boot with 1 gig. We have our boot EFI with 1 gig. We have our root partition not with 10 gigs, but 10,000, and then 9.8 gigs. We have our swap with 1 gig, and that's it. This is working fine. One attention point though is this. If you are setting your machine to boot up from a different disk, like VDB in this case, or the second disk, I'm using a virtual machine. So this virtual machine is this one. Specifically, we can see the name of the server, XFS second disk. After installing, what I had to do is I need to access my configuration, come up to the boot order and change the order of the disk. Because this machine is getting the boot from the network is going to do the chain for the disk. And if this one is the first disk, like this is going to fail. The machine will boot up, will pick the second disk, or in this case, the first one. And the first one has no MBR, has no information, has no bootloader. This is going to fail for sure. The machine will get there, stuck, stop it, just waiting for you to do something. If you come up and change the order of the disk, like, okay, this is my initial disk because now I know, and then I would like to boot up from this disk. Whenever you change the order of the disk, that's it. This will be more than enough to boot up your machine properly, and then everything is going to work fine. All right. Now let's create one partition table. Let's suppose that I would like to use, let me pick one here, LVM first disk. So I can copy this one. Let's jump to satellite. So how to create a partition table on satellite. Let me put this one as the last tab. And from here, you can search by partition tables. You can go straight from this point, or you can click on host templates partition table. So hosts, templates, partition tables. And from here, you can create like all the dynamics that I have created. They are here. The nomenclature is up to you. You can pick the name that you enjoy the most. Let's suppose that I'm creating this one here, dynamic for the video LVM. And then I can just paste that content. I know this one is fine, but let's suppose that I would like to create another file system here. And this file system will be my var file system. The type will be XFS. The size will be 4 gigs. And basically that's it. One thing that you have to keep in mind is if the size that you are setting here will be enough based on the disk size that you do have. For instance, this disk is 20 gigs. So I know that I'm using 1 gig for this boot partition plus 1 here for this EFI, so 2 gigs. And then from here, check this out. I have my 4 plus 4 plus 2 plus 1. So 4, 4, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Okay, 13 gigs, my disk is 20. That's okay, this is gonna work. However, if you pass the size of this disk, let's suppose that I have 20 and then I'm trying to create something that will consume 30 gigs. During the installation, this is gonna stop. We will stop and we'll tell you, hey, you are trying to do too much. So don't do this. Feel free to return, fix your templates. Sometimes, nice thing that you can do here is, okay, let me get the exact size of this disk, and then you can automate the counting. You can split properly. using BC or any other tool that will help you to split those numbers. And then you can use here as variables. So let's suppose that you like to set your root file system with 6% of your total disk, and then your var with 10%, and then your swap with 8%, something like that. Or eventually your swap based on the memory that you do have in your system. And this one you can see over here in this example, like we have the memory, and the swap here is based on the amount of memory that you do have. So you can see we have one logic just to get the memory size and then calculate the swap based on that information. Yeah, you can play around, see what is better for your needs, but this is the main point. Once you set your code, you're good with this code, you can check on the preview, you can have one idea. I can tell you that the variable will not be populated here, but this will be populated during the rendering or during the installation. So we have this one, we have the name, we need to pick the family. I'm working with Red Hat Enterprise Linux, so I will pick Red Hat, and that's it. Basically, this is everything that I need for my partitioning template. So let's click on submit. And then if I search that one, I have this one here. Wally, what is the next step? Okay, we have some additional things that we need to do. In provisioning setup, we have operating system. So in operating system, I'm using this guy for RHEL 9.5. So I will pick my RHEL 9.5. This is Red Hat. Because of that, this is appearing here. So if we return, we can see this is the family, Red Hat. Once this is part of the family Red Hat, I can see that partition table over here. Click on partition table and you can see the partition table in this place. Just click over here. This will be available on this side, and that's it. Now we have this on our 9.5 operating system. In my case, for my provisioning, I'm using host groups. So let me open the host group. And from here, you can see that I have a lot of host groups. We have already a host group video in this video. I'm going to keep on the card explaining how to do this. A lot of nice content. But let me do something like this. I can clone one of them, or I can create a new one. So let me clone one of them, like this one. And this will be LVM for video sake. This will be nice. So once I'm cloning, I'm inheriting a bunch of stuff from the top one, host group. The only information that I need to change is this one, the partition table. Remember, we create a partition table, we assign to the operating system, and that operating system was RHEL 9.5. You can see that we have selected here RHEL 9.5. Once we select that one, we can see the partition tables that are related to RHEL 9.5. And then we have the dynamic for video over here. And that's it. Like for all the rest, we have videos talking about provisioning, this kind of stuff. You can go and check on the card, but specifically for partition table, that's it. We have this one here. Then we can submit. All right, just quick recap. We have the partition table. Partition table was created and assigned to one operating system family. Then I came to my operating system family or my operating system. I select the partition table and I added the partition table to this list. With that, I can create one host group, and in operating system, I can pick that partition table. And after that, what we have to do is just click on Discover. I have one machine already just waiting for us here. Then I can pick the host group. And what will be the host group? We have one for video sake. So let me customize this one. LVM, video sake. I will provision this machine. I will not wait for this to the end of this video. You saw how this works already. But what I would like to show here is this operating system. You can see that we have this partition table. And then whenever we proceed with this configuration, there you go. This is going to be there. Then submit. All right, let me give you a bonus. this machine will start the provisioning right now. But Wally, how can I see the information about the templates? So whenever you access this machine, you can click on details and then you can click on Kickstart Default. This is gonna show you the kickstart of this machine, okay? And this is the kickstart file. You can scroll down and check this out. You have the dynamic. We have all the rules that we did based on this machine. And here we can see the var that we added with 4 gigs. So basically this is how we can confirm if this information is accurate, if this information is working. And I'm pretty confident that this machine will be deployed properly with the correct partitioning with no issues at all. If we return to all the other machines, so let me show you here. This is the one with the standard partitioning. Details, I can see the Kickstart default. You can also search by 0 MBR and then check this out. We have the 0 MBR, clear, and auto part. This is everything. This is the standard one. If we check the next one, this is LVM first disk. Again, details. Let me remove this one. Kickstart default. You can search by 0 MBR, and here we are. This is dynamic, and then this is working because we added the dynamic. And here we have all the information and partitioning that we need. Check this out. We are here. I was waiting for this machine to show some stuff and we got a problem. And this is amazing because we are able to see live what's going on, how to fix, and then move it on. You can see that this machine is complaining about the name. Like the name, there is already one home LV. And why? If we take a look, I just copy this line, I paste over here. I change the mount point /var, but the name of the logical volume is wrong. What was this on purpose? Definitely not. This one not. So let's fix this one. How can we fix it? We can search by, let me open a new tab. I closed some of the tabs. Partition tables. Video. We know that we created this one as video. Let's scroll down. We can see this the var, and then we have our var LV. Now this is going to work because the VG name is correct, but the name of this was creating some conflict with this one. We can submit, and then there you go. We can just restart the machine, and then everything is going to be fine. But let me show one thing here. Once we are in this page, we can change the terminal. I would like to show you this file. So from here, you can see that we have VDA instead of the variable. So basically, after the rendering or during the installation, we can see that we are not seeing anymore the variable, but the value VDA. And why VDA is here? Because when using LSBOK, we are looking for a disk of 20 gigs. And we can see that VDA is the one of 20 gig. And then we can see the VDA was set properly on this disk. This failed just because of the name of the logical volume. We can see this was conflicting here. But now that this is fixed, again, we can just reset this machine. The installation is going to work fine as it should be. And that's it. So guys, thank you so much for your time today. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Also, don't forget to join us in our Discord channel. All the links will be in the description down below. Let me know in the comments if you have any question about partition table, and I will see you in the next video. Take care. Bye.